Bulldogs. It is Thursday, June 11th, 2020. It's our last day of virtual instruction before final assessments begin. So, very strange moment. Well, it's been a very strange year, right? Little heads up, there will still be two videos for you guys to see. Nothing that you need to worry about for an assignment or a grade. Well, actually, one I guess you want to worry about for an assignment, and that's the review video, which I'll explain in a little bit, and also a end of the year video, which I do every year, and hope you guys watch it. So I'm trying to beat the rain that's coming here as I tell you guys about the top stories. So today in the New York Times, I encourage you to go and read about what's going to happen when schools return this fall. Now, there's not an exact plan. It's not going to tell you what you're going to do, but it's sort of saying what is happening now in other parts of the world. Right now in Europe, elementary schools and high schools are having their days much differently. Britain, that was going to open schools. Well, they've remained open, but the way they've done it is for just for like essential workers and stuff. They were going to return it, and the parents just don't seem ready yet. In many schools in Europe, elementary schools are pretty much the same. They just have to wash their hands much more often. It refers to Dutch high schools where they have to maintain social distancing. Do you think you'll be able to come to school and maintain social distancing, saying, 6 feet away from your classmates at all times? Something to think about. It's also about clinical trials for drugs related to COVID. How with lockdowns ending in many states, that the COVID numbers have been going up, and should anything be done about that? So the COVID issues go back to being the top story in the New York Times. If you scroll down, there are stories related to the protests and everything that's been going on the past few weeks. You see above a lot of the editorials refer to that. So you may want to go ahead and read that yourself. Now, on the BBC, it's a little blend of both of those two top stories on the front page. The US has now surpassed 2 million cases. As I said, cases are on the rise. So what do we need to do about that? When it comes to the protests, you have right above me statues being taken down of both Columbus and Confederate statues. Some places are sort of fighting them taking down. Some are coming down more easily. What about people that filmed police brutality? What do they face any backlash, any consequences? Also, you may want to check out diagonally above. The president is supposed to restart his campaign rallies on June 19th in Tulsa, Oklahoma. For those of you, and most of you did, the assignment on the Tulsa race riots in 1921, this is why we learn history, right? There's so many reasons. And a lot of people are like, oh, what about the Tulsa race riots? It's not common knowledge. And that's why I wanted to share it with you guys. Now, for good or bad, it's becoming more knowledge. Like, why is he choosing Tulsa as a place? Which you heard on the podcast I shared, does still have a pretty serious case or issues with racism to start. Also, he's choosing June 19th. Now, normally we're still in school on June 19th the past few years, and I've discussed that with my students. I encourage you to look up about June 19th. After the Civil War, we know that slaves were freed, and before and during, right? There's a whole long process here you'll learn more about in U.S. history. Well, remember, why did a lot of people not want their slaves to read or write, right? How is knowledge power? Well, a lot of the slaves in Texas on this area did not know that they were freed yet. And the people in charge of them didn't feel like they had to share this information with them. And on June 19th, the army literally came in and read the decree and said, like, the war's over. These people are free. So it's sort of a day of celebration, especially among the African American community. So is it a coincidence that the president has chosen this day? I think someone asked him, and he said, well, the Republican Party, which was the party of Lincoln, played a great role in winning the Civil War. So many things related to what's been going on I would love to discuss with you guys. And hopefully someday we will have that opportunity. So speaking of civil rights, today is a really significant day in civil rights history. I know you don't have to add to your timelines anymore, right? But in order to understand what's going on now, you need to understand days like today. So not terribly long ago, in 1963, two black students were going to go to school to register at the University of Alabama. Governor George Wallace of Alabama was not a fan of this. He was newly elected. One of his most famous lines is segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. So he was not a fan of this. So he literally stood in front of the door of the university to block these two students from entering in. Finally, the National Guard had to be sent to allow these students to register. So imagine that. Imagine needing the army to go to school, right? And these are people that are still alive today. This is not ancient history. Okay, so later in the day, the president at the time, John Kennedy, gave an impromptu speech. This was not planned. But when he saw everything that was going on, he's like, I need to address the nation. And he got before the TV and he addressed what's going on with civil rights and how we need to end segregation and help bring forward the civil rights movement. And the Civil Rights Act did not pass, of course, until a few years after he was assassinated. So if you want, you can go and find that speech online today. So I encourage you to do so. Okay, so probably what you're fast forwarding to, and if you did, go back and see what I just spoke. All right, it's important to know what's going on right now. Is your assessment. Now, remember, this assessment is like 45% of your grade for the trimester. And so many of you have worked so hard, and I've been so proud of you. And I want to make an assessment that is not impossible, that is not a trick, that is fair. And this assessment is based on a reading, which is from Facts on File, The Aftermath and Legacy of the British Industrial Revolution. I chose this reading because it blends everything we've learned about this trimester. So it mentions the ends of the political revolutions we learned about, then also the Industrial Revolution, references to imperialism and the World Wars. So you want to read this PDF, this article. There's going to be 25 questions. 20 will be multiple choice and 5 are short answer. That might change by 1 or 2, but that's basic, the format. And the short answer is like a couple sentences. It's not like multiple paragraphs or anything like that. So you can not read it and then take the assessment tomorrow and do fine. But maybe that won't happen. I really encourage you to prepare yourself. Go through and read it. If there's a word you don't know, look it up. Okay. If there's an idea you don't understand, right, try to break it down. You have time, right? I know when you take this assessment at home, we can't stop you from Googling things, right? But that will eat into the time. You have a time limit. So the more you understand, the more you know going into it tomorrow morning, the better you'll be, right? So you want to read it here. It goes off and it starts with a story about Samuel Slater. You may want to, if you don't watch these updated videos every day, on June 9th was the day Samuel Slater was born, and I have a slide on him and speak for a minute. You may want to go back and watch that, right? It's June 9th. And you want to read through. You can print this out, annotate it, highlight it, write notes, write definitions, right? Explain main ideas. If you put a little main idea at the side of every paragraph, you're going to help yourself tremendously, and you'll be much less stressed. Do you understand what sustainability means? It explains it, but you want to make sure you know it. Maybe you want to look up who were the Ockrights. Do you remember we learned about Sam Smith? Who was he? Okay. Adam Smith. We didn't learn about Sam Smith, but I know many of you know who Sam Smith is. Anyway, so listen, any question you have on this at all, post on our discussion board on Canvas. If you have no questions, you're totally fine. Just write something that you know. And then I know you have 2 days per assignment, but because your assessment is tomorrow, doing this tomorrow night after you take the assessment makes no sense. Okay? Any question that is up by 5 p.m., I will make a video tonight. so that before you take the assessment tomorrow, you can watch it as many times as you want. You can watch it while you take the assessment, right? Because you're at home now, right? It's not a normal exam. So if every one of you posts a different question, think of how prepared you guys will be. Okay, the question cannot be what are the questions on the exam. All right, clever, but you know, be smart. Like I said, you can print this out and use it. If you do it digitally, you can use that while you take the exam. Just get yourself prepared. You've worked hard. I don't want this to hurt all the wonderful work you've been doing. I've been proud of you guys. I miss you guys. Um, it's not quite over yet. Be ready for the end of the year video and the review video. And I look forward to going over your final portfolio things you submitted for today. All right, guys, you got this.